So Trey Hudson, I've had the honor of working with his team out there at the, it's known as the Meadow Project. And one thing I could say about Trey is I appreciate your scientific approach and your protocols. And so what you're about to see today, I mean, it is vetted, really verified. And another thing, I've been out there twice, and he really looks to debunk information too. So he looked at all sides, and I appreciate that about Trey. We met years ago. He's a good friend, great team, great person, traveled all the way from the undisclosed location that I can't give away. But please welcome Trey Hudson.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Katie Page. Hey, I appreciate y'all being here today. I think this is really going to be cool. Obviously, I have a lot invested in this project, so I think it's cool. So hopefully you will... Do what? Oh, well, I'm very tall, sorry. So my real goal is, at best, you'll be enlightened, and at least you'll be entertained. So we'll take it from there. This is a quote by Robert Frost, which I think really describes the area that we're at. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. In these woods, this adventure, this journey we're getting ready to go on, the woods truly are lovely, dark, and deep. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll agree with me. Okay, so the official title of this is The Meadow Project: Anomalous Geoconcentrations and Divergent Phenomenologies, a Case Study. Or, How I Went to an Area Known for Bigfoot, UAPs, and Found Some Other Very Weird Stuff. So, getting into that, I'm going to give you an apology first. People always ask me, where is this location? I'm not going to tell you. Well, I'm going to tell you. It's east of Arizona, south of the Mason-Dixon line. It's somewhere in the America's Southland, and I've got to move around because I'm a moving around kind of guy. I'm rambling on, as Led Zeppelin once said. So I don't divulge the location, not because I'm a butthole. Well, I mean, I am a butthole, but not on this. I don't divulge the location because every site of extreme high strangeness, when it's been outed, when it's been disclosed, when it's been put out there in the public, it's inundated. And all meaningful research at that location ceases. So what I'm going to do is ask mea culpa. Will y'all forgive me for not giving away the location? You know, this is a participant. You know, y'all, okay, thank you. Man, rough crowd. Did nobody get their free drink tickets from the bar? There you go. I don't want to hear from you, Paige. Just sit back. So a little bit about my background. I attended high school in metropolitan Atlanta. I am an Eagle Scout. I earned the Scouts 50-miler a Foot Afloat Award. That's where you either canoe or hike 50 miles. I earned that 3 times. I attended the University of West Georgia. I studied under some folks like the famous parapsychologist Dr. William Roll and others. I was commissioned as a U.S. Army intelligence officer, 35 Delta, and I went into the reserves. I was injured, and I'm a 100% disabled veteran now. I don't look like it, but I've got some issues going on. So I went to go work for the Army as a civilian, as a federal employee. So I did things like a tour as an anti-terrorism officer in Afghanistan. I did protection of chemical weapons, and I ended up my career retiring in 2023 as the Chief of Intelligence and Security at one of DOD's organic industrial bases, the big factories DOD has. So, and I tell people that that's my job. This is my vocation. This is the stuff I really love. I'm just got reinstated as a MUFON field investigator after they kicked me out. No, they didn't kick me out. I got too busy and stepped away from it a little bit. And right now, I'm currently the director of an organization called the Anomalous Studies and Observation Group. So what about the ASOG? We're made up of law enforcement, former special operations people, paramedics, military, emergency medicine. We have university degrees in diverse fields like nursing, management, public affairs, physics, psychology, engineering, philosophy, and many others. This is the team that I assembled to take a look at this area of extreme high strangeness. These are fields where people are used to dealing with high stress. They're used to taking orders, and they're used to executing missions, regardless of their personal difficulties, regardless of their personal hang-ups, and most importantly, regardless of their personal fear or apprehension about the situation. That's really important because this stuff can get very weird. So we decided that we were going to, let me back up. There are other areas in the continental United States of high strangeness. We've heard of that place out in Utah, Skinwalker Ranch, Colorado Ranch, Marley Woods, the Bridgewater Triangle, Chestnut Ridge, in an area that we started investigating in 2016 known as the Meadow. This area has a rich history in all the various genres of a high strangeness. So it has a very rich history of UFOs, and I'm going to go over some, or UAPs, depending on what your flavor is. I'm going to go over some of those stories and reports. A woman who works at the location close to the boundary of the BAZ, the cover name we use for this facility is the Blackwater Anomalous Zone, and that's how I refer to it in my books. Reported seeing an object in the sky in the area. It was described as crystalline when it popped out from one of the clouds. It was a spinning crystal reflecting a myriad of colors as the fastest picked up and reflected available light. It moved into another dense cloud and disappeared. The observer reported 10 minutes of missing time and was constantly plagued by dreams consistent with the abduction phenomena. In October 21st, 2005, the National UFO Reporting Center said that three friends were hiking in the BAZ. They stopped at a popular lake that evening. In the book, the lake is known as Stevens Lake. While they witnessed mysterious flashes in the forest and what could be described as a sphere of plasma 300 yards away floating across the sky. It's worth noting there is no electrical service in this area. It is extremely, extremely remote. 1996, a hunter arrived at a remote hunting spot in the preserve at 1 a.m. because he wanted to get up, get an early start the next morning. He was reclining in his pickup truck, watching the stars over a nearby city that he could see from his high vantage point. He saw a light start zipping back and forth over one of the cities. He grew bored watching the light and drifted off to sleep. He awoke an hour later, and he noticed the light was still there. He took notice when a larger light entered the picture and was orbited by the smaller one. The smaller one began a missile-like trajectory to his location where he was sitting by himself. He felt like this could possibly be a threat. He chambered around into his rifle, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, that's a gut instinct, but what are you really going to do? And discretion got the better of him, and he just left. You know, if you feel weird, leave, unless you're on my team, and then you got to stay. And many others. There's this whole area. You can go to the databases, and there's just a whole bunch of UFO reports. But as they say in the commercials, wait, there's not more. There's also a presence of Bigfoot. Where else have we heard about Big Feet or Bigfoots? Skinwalker Ranch, Chestnut Ridge. This is a wonderful drawing from a old 1970s pamphlet called The Aliens. That's Hal Crawford drew that. And also there's another place in here in Utah known as the Colorado Ranch. And Katie y'all have had experiences with Bigfoot type creatures too. And you can take a look at that in the APRO report, Aerial Phenomena Reporting Organization. So, come on, laugh. So let's look at the history of Bigfoot, or Mr. Foot as we call him in this area. In 1938, a newspaper story told the sheriff of a sheriff posse hunting for a strange beast, which farmers insisted was accompanied by a woman. Sounds like a date I had in college. And a child, both as savage in appearance as actions as the man. Definitely a date in college. There's no mention that the mysterious beast was ever caught. In Bigfoot folklore, a lot of times you'll see old newspaper reports of wild man reports. And oftentimes what they're talking about is what we call today Bigfoot or Sasquatch. 1994, pretty current, a couple were fishing in a small boat on, once again, Stevens Lake, where we had the weird flashes. in the morning, they heard a loud scream. It was reported as a howl developing into a scream. The year previous, the father of one of the witnesses was fishing at the lake's spillway and was traversing rugged terrain to get to the location. And while crossing a creek, he noticed a small human-like footprint in the soil. And it's odd that a person would be barefoot in such a remote area. Another man had reported that his family were also at the same lake picking huckleberries and heard a commotion in the tree line. They turned and saw a, quote, large hairy man, quote, watching them. And when the man was spotted, he ran off. The family quickly left. In 2013, a husband and wife were hiking and exploring in the area between the Coal Springs campground, which is a campground we use as base camp, in Stevens Lake. They found an old primitive hunter's camp known by locals as the Baskin's Hollow Hunt Camp, and those are all cover names for these places. It appears that the hunters or campers had vanished. Their tents, cheers, coolers, and other expensive gear was left as though somebody had either left in a hurry or was taken. Maybe, like I said, maybe they were frightened or they were moved by some unknown force. Cue David Paulides. 6 friends were camping in the nature preserve in 2005 when they had a frightening encounter. They were the only campers in a popular camping spot. At 11 p.m., they sounded what appeared to be a rumble or a buzz, similar to what you would hear from a chainsaw starting. They reported the sound. They said that the sound developed into a low hum. Excited by these happenings, they started shining a powerful spotlight around the woods. Much to their surprise, they caught a figure in their beam, a large humanoid covered in grayish fur. What's interesting is there's folklore about a grayish or white Bigfoot in this area, and that folklore goes back many, many, many years. It was peering at them from behind a tree, watched them for 60 seconds, and as they moved their light beam for a split second, the creature, as they often do, disappeared. And many, many others. So y'all got to see a picture of a sexy Bigfoot, and now here's a drunk Bigfoot. So what about some more history? What about Native American legends? There's a Native American legend of a skinwalker type, and this is Eastern Native American legend, of an entity known as the Spearfinger Witch. And what she would do is she would sing her song, and I'm not even going to attempt to sing it in Cherokee, but it was liver, liver, I eat your liver. And she would touch people with her spear finger, which was a obsidian finger, and kill them and eat their liver and also abduct their children. There's also a very rich history of ghosts. There's also, like we said, a very rich history of UAPs. But this area, as lovely as it is and as tranquil it is, it's also very, very tragic. Bodies are found here, a lot. Skeletons are found here. And within a few years ago, there was a pretty bad cult murder. The cult that was tied to this murder actually has a preference for camping in remote campsites in the southeast. Now, the particular squatters camp where they were, this murderous group was camping near us was cleared out by the police. But maybe there are others. So the area has a very tragic history too. And a lot of these remote places that you read about have a darker side. Is that coincidence? Yeah, who knows? But we decided we were going to take a look at some local folklore. In January 2016, we had been researching the folklore of a haunted road. Now this was one of those folklores that I'm sure every community has one. A road was built across a very remote cemetery, and the county decided not to expend the resources to move the graves, so they just paved over it. So as the story goes, the vengeful spirits, if you drove across their graves, they would come out of their earthly slumber, and they would drag their hands along the side of your car, creating greasy fingerprints. Locals would say this: don't go out there at night, them haints will get you. Okay, let me translate. The ghosts are abundant, and they may abduct you. That's the translation. So, this area is really rich in folklore. And I started off as a paranormal guy, a ghost guy. So I'm like, okay, deserted road, ghost, don't go there at night. Guess what I'm doing? Yeah, I'm going there at night. So we set up base camp, And this particular road was about 20 miles from base camp. It was a very dreary, rainy February evening, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. Since we were so far from our base camp, we had to use a repeater and ham radios to reach back to base camp, and we radioed back to base camp, and a gentleman named Bob Wilson was back at base camp and said, nothing happened. Wah, wah, wah. And Bob goes, oh, wait, let me tell you what happened back at base camp. So I was like, oh, hell yeah. So we drove back to base camp, and here's what he described. And forgive my PowerPoint animations here. Bob had drank a lot of coffee, and it was very cold, and the simple fact of fluid dynamics came into play. Okay, basically, what goes in has got to go out, you know. So Bob, being the fine gentleman he is, stepped away from the, this one died, stepped away from the campsite and decided to take care of that biological situation. And being so cold and so rainy, he was very surprised when he saw the moon appear. And he's thinking, oh, this is really cool. You know, the moon is out. Maybe the sky will clear. It won't rain anymore. You know, we'll have a nice weekend. And then he saw, right before that, he saw a bolt of lightning. Strange thing is, the lightning made no sound. And we all have something called, I call it a normalcy box. And when anything weird happens, we have a very, very human tendency to jump in our normalcy box and close the lid. Well, that must be the moon. What else could it be? That must be a bolt of lightning. What else could it be? Now, never mind the fact that it had no thunder and anything like that. So I'm going to kind of narrate what Bob saw. So come on, PowerPoint. Okay, let's try this. Well, I'm sorry, Okay, well, I'll just tell you what Bob saw. I don't know why that's not working. What he saw was the moon come up. He saw a bolt of lightning come down, no sound. So actually what it turned out to be was a beam of light. And then he saw a white orb appear. And he thought it was the moon. It looked like the moon, same color as the moon, except this orb started moving sideways. And I'm going to ask my astronomer, no pressure, does the moon move sideways in the sky? Oh, well, damn. That doesn't win. Forget it. I'm done. Y'all have a nice day. Correct. But from your vantage point, if you're looking at it, it doesn't traverse unless it's very low on the horizon. But it wasn't. So it moved, and it stopped. And then a small black pinpoint appeared. And that pinpoint got larger and larger, like the iris of a camera opening up, until all that was left was a thing very much like the ring of fire during an eclipse, or ring of diamonds effect, and then it winked out. So Bob saw a UFO or UAP. So it's like, forget that haunted road business. This is where it's hopping and popping. Let's stay here. So this area quickly became the focus of our attention, and we decided to continue our research at a remote quartz-filled meadow about a quarter of a mile from the base camp. And we thought it would be a very good place to concentrate our field search, starting in 2016. Why this meadow? Nothing special. It just made sense logistically. It was about an 8-acre meadow, mostly clear of trees. It had a ridge to the south, a large creek to the north. Our thought process was, if a cryptid, Bigfoot if you will, moved across this open field, it would leave a track line. That's called a track trap in the cryptid world. So we could see as it moved, if it moved across with footprints. Number two, being so large and open, we could put teams on the periphery of this, equipped with thermal and night vision, and if anything moved across the field at night, we'd be able to see it. Item number three, we could also put teams up on top of the ridge, looking down below, and they could also do operations where maybe they could force something down to the meadow and we could capture it with our equipment. Number four is it had an open expanse of sky. So we can do sky watch simultaneously. So logistically, this place made good sense. And every once in a while, a person falls into luck. And it just so happens this was one of those situations. So we started in July 2016. And our plan was to have several teams scattered around the meadow with their equipment, their thermals and their night vision, and have a single lone individual move across the top of the meadow, across the top of the ridge. The idea he would flush anything down and he would also be able to see anything below him. Well, we all got set up in position. Bob radioed us back and he said, hey, I forgot something, I think a flashlight or something back at base camp. I'm going to run back and get it. I'll let you know when I start traversing the other ridge. Bob was by himself. Same Bob. Bob Wilson's like a weird magnet. God rest his soul, but he's like the weird guy. And so he went back to base camp. The next thing on the radio, he comes on the radio and says, I just arrived at the tree across the trail, and I don't know how I got here. Okay, so we quickly jumped in our normalcy box and closed the lid and said, oh, we can rationalize this. Maybe he's having some kind of medical episode, right? So we always have a chief medical person appointed on the team, and this guy's a paramedic, so he got on the radio and said, Bob, are you lightheaded? No. Did you fall down? No. Do you have a headache? No, because we're thinking maybe stroke. Can you repeat Mary Had a Little Lamb, which he did flawlessly. So, once again, we're ensconced deeply in our normalcy box, and we said, well, he must have really been thinking about the mission and wasn't paying attention and just got to this landmark without realizing. How many people ever showed up at work and you're like, oh, I don't remember driving here? So it happens. But the thing is when we put Bob under hypnotic regression years later, there was a block there. And the hypnotherapist could not get through that block. He said, all I remember is just becoming aware at the tree. And anything prior to that, prior to leaving camp to the tree across the trail, I have no recollection of. That's pretty significant. We could not punch through that block under hypnosis. Okay, so that's weird thing number one. Weird thing number two. So Bob did eventually make it to the ridge, worked across the top of the ridge, dropped down into the west end of the meadow. And he started working his way across. He was picked up on thermal by two of my team members. Tell you a little bit about these guys. Team member number one is a gentleman by the name of Tim Gillardin, former U.S. Army Ranger, has dual degrees in physics and philosophy from the Georgia Institute of Technology. At that time, he was currently working for one of the big auto companies on AI, AI vehicles, trains, stuff like that. The gentleman number two is our paramedic, also has a degree in management from Georgia Tech, has a bachelor's degree in public administration, 30-year paramedic at that time in the fire services. Solid individuals, and you never met Tim, but you know Daryl. So they're really solid guys. So they see Bob's headlamp drop down off of the ridge. They bring their thermal up, and they see his heat signature. They drop their thermal down, and where he was standing, a red orb has appeared. That red orb moves several hundred meters in just a few seconds, so we calculated at about 23 miles per hour. Winks out, they quickly bring their thermal up, and there's Bob standing there. Bob, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Why? Well, come over to us and we'll discuss it. So they come over there, or he comes over to them, and it's like, Bob, do you feel okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Why are y'all so freaked out? You turned into a ball of light. I said, no, I didn't. I just walked over here. Hey, Bob, you're crazy. You turned into, what was it like? What did it feel like? It didn't feel like anything. I just walked over here. So what's interesting is from their perspective, the observer perspective, he turned into a ball of plasma, moved very fast. From his perspective, all he did was walk over there. So where this gets really kind of cool is it appears that there are two realities potentially existing at the same time. You see that on the quantum scale, but it's unheard of on a macro scale. So, and we have the affidavits and interviews and all of that. It's anecdotal, but, the witnesses and experiencers are very reliable people. Okay, so, but wait, there's more. The next morning, or during the night, our base camp operator got on the radio and said, "Hey guys, why are y'all coming back to camp over the tall ridge? I can see your green headlamps. Why didn't you come back on the trail?" And it's like, "Glenn, we're still in the meadow." And Glenn was seeing green orbs or green lights up on top of the ridge. And once he realized that they were not team members, he quickly realized that they were about 10 or 12 feet off the ground. That night at about 0200, the same Glenn got out to take care of some biological business, and he looks up and he sees a white hominid peeking around a tree. He quickly put everything back into place, if you know what I mean, and scurried over to one of our team members who had a very high-end thermal. He got her up. She came out. Her name is Kristen Payton, and by the time they got out there, nothing was there. What's interesting, though, is this white hominid matches folklore of the area of a white Bigfoot. Okay, so the next morning, when you think it just couldn't get any weirder, Bob Wilson, who is a retired law enforcement officer, worked many years in backcountry search and rescue in California, in the very rugged Sierra Nevadas, always carries a GPS. And his GPS always has the track function on, so it leaves breadcrumbs where he's at. And he said, "Hey guys, I want to show you this. Look at my track line. There are several straight track lines of several kilometers all over the place in areas I never went to." Now remember, he had the missing time. This terrain is very rugged. You can't move in a straight line over several kilometers, either on foot or by vehicle. But how can you move over rugged terrain in a straight line? In the air. Not saying that's what happened, but that's one way to move over rough terrain in a straight line. So, as far as high strangeness, do we have a winner? Yeah, I think so. But it can't get any weirder, right? This would be the apex of a lot of researchers, research. It's like, wow, we just hit the home run. It doesn't get any better than this. Au contraire, but it does. We came back in February of 2017. No vegetation in the trees, quite cool. And we decided to do the same protocol that we did before, except this time our new team protocol is nobody goes out alone. You always go in at least 2 people. You always have radio comms. So we didn't want a repeat of the missing time episode. So once again, what we did is we had a team move over the top of the ridge with teams down in the bottom with their equipment. I was on the team on top of the ridge. When we got to the west end of the ridge, we were looking down, and one of the team members, Daryl, was looking through his thermal, and he said, "That's weird. Why is there a telephone fiber optics exchange box sitting in the meadow? I've never noticed that before. A box." And I kind of shook my head, and I said, "Hold on, let me get my thermal out." And I looked at it, and I see deer. Very, very plainly deer on thermal. And I hand him my thermal, and he's like, "Well, those are deer." I said, "Was that what you saw?" And he goes, "No." So once again, normalcy box. Well, you must have misidentified something. Deer in a box. They look very similar. So we move down to the bottom of the meadow, and we get a call from, let me back up. We once again are looking down in the meadow from the vantage point of the ridge line, and Bob Wilson takes his thermal, and he notices a man-sized heat signature. And I'm not going to say man-shaped, I'm going to say man-sized. We estimated it to be, maybe 1.75 meters tall, maybe, half a meter wide. And this signature was small, large, and then split into 2. Now, what was it? I don't know. There are some indications of something much stranger based on some heat signatures we saw later. About that time, we got a call on our radio that our team members with the thermals are starting to see what they describe as boxes appear around the meadow. Cooler than their surroundings, angular. This place, that place, that place. Could you quickly come over to us? And we said, sure. So we got there, and we decided to see if we could interdict one of these heat signatures. The thing quickly dissipated, but this is a drawing from David Pardue, who is one of the FLIR operators, on what he saw, which was basically a large box with a cruciform shape next to it. And we vectored a team, into where this box was, and they disappeared off our thermal completely, like no heat signature at all. The weird thing is this area is very sparse in vegetation. So we couldn't think of anything that would be opaque enough to completely obliterate their heat signature. So that's pretty cool. So while this was going on and we're filming it, one of my thermal operators pans to the right and she says, who or what are those? And it appears to be two heat signatures watching us from a small copse of trees about 40 yards away. Part of our protocol is nobody moves off station without permission, so no team was in that area. So, pretty cool? Anybody want to see it? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, let me back up. I forgot about this. Also during that time, while I was doing the briefing to some new team members, now you take this for what it is. A lot of people say this is a blob squatch, maybe it's a Bigfoot, I don't know. I'm just putting this out there. Is while I was briefing and we were viewing this photograph the next year, one of the team members noticed something kind of in the edge of the tree line. And, it looks like maybe a possible brow ridge, maybe at a protruding midface. We went over there a year later and there wasn't anything there that looked like that. Hey, take that for what it's worth. I'm just saying, take it for what it's worth. But we thought that was kind of interesting. So here is the strange figures multiplying. And so that is looking down, and you can see the heat signature. It's small, large, then splits into two. So I had a friend of mine in the business in Hollywood stabilize that and enhance it. So this is an enhanced version of it. So you've got the object, whatever it is, small, large, small, large, small, large, and then splits into two. Now, thermals at that distance, and Mark will tell you, they're kind of persnickety, and you take it for what it's worth. And that's the whole thing about this whole lecture. I'm putting it out there, come up with your own conclusions. Because I'll be honest, not only do I not know the answers, I don't even really know what the right questions are. So.
Trey, there's the other phenomenon, whether the sky or coming out of the water, where one becomes two.
Right.
I've seen this trope.
Yeah.
Could this be something similar?
It could be. I mean, it's something that is not unknown when using thermals, that you'll have an object split into two, go back into one, and all of that. So here is the approaching the box. So we'll take a look at that. And this is the actual audio and everything from it.
Halt. You are right on the edge, but it is fading away.
And you remember that it had kind of started to fade away. It's not really there anymore. So they're approaching the remnants of it.
10-4. You are right on the right hand. The way we're facing it, you are at the right hand edge of that box, and it's possibly 20 foot to the other edge. And there's looks like a cross or an X, and then it's probably, judging by now, it's at least 25 foot tall.
Now the guy narrating it is looking through another thermal.
Right.
So he's actually seeing a slightly different image, and he did not have his thermal set up to record video that night.
No, I'm looking at their thermal signature there.
is it was there, and by the time this recording started,
You
it
were
had pretty much
directly on it,
dissipated.
but it has faded almost
So
away.
as far as actual proof, and that's such a loose word, all I have is their affidavits that they saw a very structured heat signature prior to this starting.
It's gone.
They said they estimated it about maybe 18
It's
to 20
completely
feet
faded
tall.
away now. It's gone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to show you a recreation at the same area that we did during the daytime.
Look, is one of them right up under it? Or what was it? So they are
It's very sparse during
they
the
are
winter
into
time.
the wood line now,
You should
'Cause I
still be
c-
picking them up.
because I can't see them.
Got their lights. It would have been off to the right.
Those are trees.
Okay.
Yeah,
about
the
50
verticals.
feet.
Yeah, those are trees.
No, to the right. In the same line, just walk to the right. No,
Could be
my
the-
right, your left.
Yeah, they're trying to vector the team,
Negative. It was
No.
out in the meadow itself.
and that's a key point. Is they reported the actual structure as being in the
Okay.
meadow, not in the
Is
tree
that
line.
them? No.
They're coming back. Ten four. Kind of scan to the right.
So here it comes with the weird things in the.
Oh. Look. We don't know. What is that?
What is that? There they are.
All right, there they are.
Who or what is that?
Look at.
What is their team four? Grumpy's team four, correct? No. Three. Team three. What is your location?
And who or what is that? Team 3 radioed back. They were still on station. They had never moved. So we had no team members at that location. So what we can say is we saw what appears to be 2 heat signatures in an area where we had no corresponding team members. It would be difficult for somebody to sneak across the meadow unseen and take up station in that group of trees. No, there is a hiking trail next to it, but this is not near the hiking trail. And we had teams all the way around the meadow, so anybody crossing our external perimeter would have been picked up by one of the teams.
What were your intentions from having this team of ex-military law enforcement, guys that don't shrink from a, so what was your intentions?
Well,
If you were to trace let's say it was a Bigfoot.
well, not chase them, but if things get really weird, some people are like, "Oh crap, I'm done. Mic drop. I'm out of here." And these are the kind of people that just they're used to following orders. If I tell you, as a tactical commander, and that's the person who's actually in charge on the ground, if I tell you, I don't care how weird it gets, you stay on station, then damn it, you stay on station. Don't.
What were your intentions from, like, you have all these people in the field, you said you're sending somebody along the ridge line to chase?
Not chase it, maybe flush something so we could
Yeah, so what was your intention?
to capture it on video or film, have anecdotal evidence through affidavits and things like that. Not engage with anything, but maybe capture some data. So here's a recreation during the day, and Mark, you'll probably be interested in this. What we did is we went back to the same location in the same time of year within about 2 weeks. We filmed it during the day, so the ambient temperature between a human being and the surrounding is closer. So it should be easier to mask the heat signature during the day. So we filmed it both in thermal and visual. And we had 2 cameras set up shooting this at the same time. So let me play that for you. For some reason, it does not want to launch. There we go. And you can see how sparse the vegetation is. And you can actually, at one point, you can see a person on the ridge line on thermal moving back along here if you watch real close. Yes. And you can see all the way up this ridge, all the way up almost to the top of the ridge. And they actually go through some pretty sparse vegetation right here, and they never lose their heat signature. They lose it partially, but never completely. And forgive me, I'm trying to track two cameras at the same time on two tripods, so it's a little herky-jerky. Yeah, so what was the opaque phenomena that masked their heat signature? I don't know. Actually, when you walk into the meadow, you have the creek on your right, you turn to the left, and it's where you and Jessica usually would set up, and that's looking back towards the base of the ridge.
Yeah, exactly. And wasn't this, so in this meadow, there's some tree line.
Right.
I'm not sure what they're there for.
Yeah.
But Daryl and I did like an EVP section, and we heard chatter.
Yeah. And that's another thing. That's another thing that's super common is disembodied voices, people catching shadow things moving around their periphery, and like small orbs, almost like we call them fairy lights, like little tiny blinks of light. And this is during the winter, so there are no fireflies.
Trey?
Yeah.
Is it possible that they disappeared because they walked behind trees? Were any trees of sufficient diameter to launch an entire?
Yeah. Remember, we had three people, maybe at the least 2 feet apart. So there is no tree of a sufficient diameter to completely mask all three of their heat signatures. It just, there just isn't, because you're talking about a tree probably wider than this table.
This was at 10:30 at night around?
Yeah, around 10:30 at night.
What time of year was that?
This was February 17th.
Okay, so you're not going to get ground fog,
No.
which could also mask it.
It can. We didn't. Now it was near kind of a swampy area, but we didn't detect any ground fog. The temperature was, I think, in the upper 50s, low 60s, and I'd have to go. The data I sent you last year was had all that meteorological data in there.
I don't recall it offhand.
Okay, well, dang it. What good are you? Yeah, no. Anyway, kind of what I'm referring to, and this might spark his memory, is it was featured in Discovery Channel on a TV show called Alien Encounters Fact or Fiction. And Mark, Dave Mason, and Ben Hansen reviewed the video. So, and Mark called me a hoaxer. No, he didn't. He did not. He said it. I think everybody came up with
Either as genuine as the day is long.
it's inconclusive. It's about the best I can say. I don't know what it was. I do have no definitive answers. But consider the February 1968 box or cube sighting here locally, okay? So Katie kind of talked about it. Burl and Nellie Lewis off of Route 160 observed a Quonset hut-like UFO, and then they observed a box-shaped UFO heading towards them. It was 20 by 5 by 5 feet, or 20 by 5 by 9 feet, based on their affidavit, and it caused Nellie to vomit, quite violently. And they remember watching the box for about 10 minutes, and when they got home, they had 2 hours of missing time.
Oh, in addition, they only saw it with the binoculars. They
Right.
did not see it with the naked eye.
Yeah, and especially at night, if you're using what they call night glass or binoculars with very large, objective apertures, you can see a lot better at night. So and that's why they call them in the Navy night glasses. So hitchhikers, after this outing, Kristen Payton started having dreams about orbs coming in through her bedroom window. These dreams eventually evolved into having nightmares about humanoid figures standing next to her bed, watching her. We did hypnotic regression on her. The transcript of that is in my second book. And she actually describes what could be interpreted as an abduction experience. Okay, it looks like Bud Hopkins, John Mack kind of stuff. Next day, Jessica Jones was filming her toddler son playing on an elliptical machine. Through the viewfinder, she saw a orb circling her son. These orbs were not visible to the naked eye. At one point during the video, her young son points up at an orb and said, "Ball, ball." Now, could that be IR reflecting off a mote of dust? Maybe. It was interesting, though, that her son was pointing in the same area where this thing was in the viewfinder of the camera or the phone. I had a small LED flashlight, disappear from a desk in my home, only to reappear at the exact same spot in the morning. So I placed it there, turned around, oh crap, I lost it, looked all over. Next morning I came up, there it is. In a lot of these cases of areas of high strangeness, there's like a trickster element to it. So, and they call it the hitchhiker. So, pretty well documented. In April 2018, we decided to hike to a similar meadow about 5 miles from base camp. We encountered nothing unusual during the night. During the evening, 2 team members saw a beam of light shoot down the fire break where we had our hammocks and tents set up. Early that morning, a team member saw what he described as a sunrise in the west, a glow, oranges glow on the horizon. And the next morning, the gentleman whose tent was actually pitched inside of this fire break saw this. A stick that was not there the evening before had been wound up under the left side of his hip belt and up over the right side. So you can see that right here, under the left side, up over the right side. We looked for maybe a dead sapling that he might have put his pack on and broke it over. We looked for possibly something falling, and we could come up with no explanation on how it ended up in that particular configuration under one side of the hip belt and over the other. Daryl and Chris, early that morning, 2 researchers went out to the meadow and they discovered a series of tracks. And the way they described it is almost like a vehicle had been placed in the meadow, traveled a distance, and was lifted out. It had a very distinctive beginning and a very distinctive end. They described the grass as being pressed down and there being anthills and molehills inside of these track lines that were not compressed. So what does that sound like? What people describe crop circles. You know, take it for what it's worth. Dave and Terry, once we got back from the hiking trip, they went back out there with their full spectrum camera, stood in the track line, and sighted down the track line, and through their full spectrum camera, they saw another box or cube, which this time was about 9 foot by 9 foot by 9 foot. They stepped out of the track line, no box. Stepped in the track line, box. Nothing visual, box. They got really excited about this, went to hit record and take some still photographs and video, and they realized their SD card was back at camp. Yeah, so, you know, it happens. You know, it happens. Sometimes you miss some stuff. Well, I've got their affidavits on that. And this is what was captured from the was from another non full spectrum GoPro that one of the members had, and you can see very faintly the track lines right here.
Does that line up with Hickton at all?
Do what?
The Hickton case, does it line up with that one?
No, this was actually facing towards the west end of the meadow.
What's the distance between the track lines?
Track line was about the same distance as you would have with a smaller four-wheel drive, like an older style Jeep. So what's that, 40, 50 inches maybe? So it was starting to remind me of another known location many miles away in the west, and that location is known as, come on, folks. Right, and I was thinking, man, this is very similar. It was becoming quickly apparent that a traditional investigative approach maybe wasn't robust enough. And I started to wonder, what if all of the paranormal disciplines were actually different facets of a single unifying phenomena, like different facets of the same diamond, where you have ufology, paranormal, cryptology, and others, and it depends on how you're looking at it or which facet presents itself that kind of gauges and drives your experience. So I decided maybe we started looking at a little bit different approach. So what we started doing is really tightening up our protocols, to deal with any phenomena, that may come in the future. November 2029, we decided we were going to use the Estes method borrowed from the paranormal world. Anybody familiar? Anybody ever seen the ghost shows where they use ghost boxes? And what the Estes method does is it takes a ghost box, you plug earbuds into the output, you put it in the ear of a person you call the receiver, you put earmuffs on that person, you blindfold them so they have no cue visually or audibly on what's being asked. And then you have a person called the interrogator who gives them instructions. If you hear an intelligible word, however silly or ridiculous, you just say it out loud. So if you hear rutabaga, you just say rutabaga. And the thing is, maybe it'll correspond with questions that are being asked. So we tried that. And I'm going to show you a video. It's been edited for brevity, but I'll let you decide if maybe we were perhaps in contact with something. Are you of this earth?
Once.
Where are you now?
Land.
Are you responsible for the portals?
Likely.
Do you use the portals for transportation?
Yes.
Are the portals open to us?
No.
Are the portals dangerous?
No.
May we enter the portals?
Once.
Remember one time we did go into
yes.
it.
Are the portals a manifestation of plasma energy and electromagnetic fields?
Leave.
I am going to list...
Go.
No, we're not going. I'm going to list some phenomenologies that precede the portals. Electromagnetic fields.
Stop it.
Electromagnetic fields.
So,
Radiation.
oh, sorry.
Microgravity.
Power. Yes.
So, take it for what it's worth. Were we communicating with something? Yeah. You know, it
Validate that a little more by having 2 or 3 people do the same thing at the same time.
oh, we have. We have. Oh, yeah.
Trey, just to be clear, he did not hear your question.
No, he had sound canceling earbuds, shooting muffs over that, and then a blindfold. So, and it's interesting that when I started naming phenomenologies, it seemed to get irritated. And actually what I was thinking about, and Mark, you helped me out here, is there's been some study of tiny singularities that exist with the Earth's magnetic field and cosmic rays from the sun. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that's far from this.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking when I was asking about the phenomenologies. So,
I did think you were going to get a major hit when you talked about electromagnetics.
the weird thing is we don't pick up a lot of electromagnetics. It's odd. I mean, we have trifields, and you would think that you would see, a tiny bump, but that just isn't something we have. So January 2020, only 3 members showed up for this expedition, very few people. And we decided to record EMF, RF, and radiation baselines in specific locations where we encountered incidents of high strangeness. So Kristen and I went out there with our Geiger counter and our trifield and, and all our stuff, and we were recording baselines. And there's a large creek or small river to the north of the site. So we decided we were going to cross it and see what was on the other side. So we take our boots off, we cross this creek, I come out to the other side, and there's another large field there, another meadow. And I'm really excited. I'm like, oh, wow, we can do concurrent investigations on both sides of this creek. This is really cool. So I'm really excited. And I say, hey, Kristen, there's another big field over here. You need to come see this. And she goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, this is great. And she goes, don't move. I'm coming over there too. I'm like, cool. You'll really think this is neat when you see it. So I sat on a log. I put my boots back on. She gets over there, and she goes, what in the heck are you talking about? I said, isn't this great? She goes, Trey, you're where you started. I'm like, no, I'm not. She goes, look around. This is the meadow. You've been here probably 30 times. And as weird as this sounds, when she told me that, it's almost like the environment changed, and it went back to the meadow that I was so familiar with. And so she radioed back to base camp, and she's an ER nurse, so she thought maybe he's having, there's another incident of some sort of stroke or something. And so the paramedic wanted to come out with his team and bring me back to base camp. And so I said, guys, I'm making a command decision. Leave me the F alone. Give me 10 minutes to get myself reoriented, and then I'll make my way back to camp. While this was going on, we had our Geiger counter running a logging mode. And at that exact moment, we captured a radiation spike of 0.33 microsieverts per hour, which is well above the 0.02 microsieverts per hour baseline. Coincidence? I don't know. Radiation spikes have been seen and recorded in incidences of high strangeness. So I wondered if I hadn't been following our protocol of having two people, communications, and navigation devices with us, would I ended up as one of the chapters in one of David Paulides' books. June 2020, the main area of base camp was closed by the state due to COVID. We couldn't use our usual base camp, so we decided to camp at a remote location known as a Baskin's Holler Hunters Camp. We started having vehicles lock themselves and unlock them on their own, and Katie has experienced this herself. We decided to use Stephen Greer, and I don't want to get into any debate on that, but we were going to use his CE5 protocol in the meadow. And while we were in the meadow, our base camp operator, who was Weird Bob, remember Weird Bob? He was sitting there, and about 40 yards away, there was a gravel chert road that ran by base camp, and he heard something pass by base camp. He never saw it, but he heard something that sounded like the crunch of gravel on the road, and this passed by. He noticed that when this happened, and this is an actual photograph, he had a radiation spike of 0.60 microsieverts per hour. Now, we put Bob under hypnotic regression, and under hypnosis, what he recalled was a Jeep. And this Jeep had two completely black shadow figures in it. No face, no features, just a shadow. The shadows got out, walked around the Jeep, got back in, and left. He reported he never saw anything with his naked eye. So the hypnotherapist thinks this might be either an external or internal screen memory, perhaps to protect him from some sort of trauma. And unfortunately, Bob passed away before we were ever able to explore that further. The next morning, one of my team members came to me and said, Trey, I had this really weird experience in the middle of the night. Now remember, we were doing CE5 protocol, had no results, nothing happened. He said, I woke up at 4:30 and had this term, Nox Magbe, and it phonetically spelled Nox Magbe, pop into my head. Went back to sleep, then again at 06:30, popped into my head. This guy has an engineering degree from the U.S. Air Force Academy, spent several years in special operations, and is now a very highly respected individual in his field of expertise, travels all over the world. His name is Tony. And so he said, what does this mean? And I said, well, I don't know. I'll look it up. I'll do some research. So I started digging around, and I found out that Nox was a name that the Romans used for their goddess of the night. Magbe was a little bit more difficult, and I started digging around, and I found the word Magba in the Old English poem Beowulf. And Magba means children or kindred. Now, you got to remember, the Romans occupied Britain until about 400 Common Era. So it's reasonable that these words might have been contemporaneous, that somebody in old the time when they spoke Old English, would at least have a nodding knowledge of Roman gods, since the Romans occupied Britain for so long. So you put those together, and what you get are the children of the night goddess. Now remember, we were doing a CE5 protocol the night before. So what are small like children? They have big heads like children, and they come into your bedrooms and bug you at night like children. Are these the children of the night goddess? July 2020, we saw the sudden death of a crucial ASOG member, one of the individuals that saw the ball of Bob turn into a ball of light. We gathered to memorialize him. While we were out there, we decided to go out and kind of see what was going on in the meadow. And we saw a strange sapling at the area where I became extremely oriented. And there was a figure tied to the top of the sapling, which was on a small island in the middle of the creek, about 12 feet up. The top of it had been formed into a perfect oval, the same general shape as an ankh. That symbol's been seen in other locations that involve concepts such as gateways or a doorway to something else. And it's been called by some folks the Galactic Keyway. And so we have two examples in here. Here's an ankh inside of the tomb of Ramesses IV. KV6 is the name of the tomb. I was there a few years ago, the Valley of the Kings. And this is the well of Santa Cristina in Italy, circa 1100 BCE. So this form, this icon, has been used to symbol a gateway or something else. And Mark, this is the weird video with the flashing lights in the sky. So in February 2021, Kristen and I were out at Stevens Lake. Remember, we talked about that earlier. And we saw two series of flashing lights in the sky. And at first, I thought they were radio towers because they moved so slowly. And through 10x binoculars, the object appeared as two bright flashing lights. The configuration of the lights did not match any standard aircraft navigation lights. I did a search on Flight Radar 24, could find no aircraft that corresponded with that location. We had seen several aircraft that night. You could plainly see the red rotating anti-collision beacons. You could see the red and green navigation lights. And so what I'm going to do is launch this, and you're going to see over there with the two lights side by side, that's kind of the cadence that they were blinking. There's two sets of them. And then I'm going to run the video, which was shot through a Psionics Aurora camera. And you can see them blinking like right there and right there. So right here and right here. And they are moving extremely slow. And like I said, they look almost stationary. And I thought that somehow I'd completely missed a large radio tower being erected. These things started high in the sky and then dropped down below the horizon. Landing lights on an aircraft or on the front of the aircraft, not the rear of the aircraft. So luckily, I know the exact latitude and longitude of where I was at. I know an exact azimuth. I shot an azimuth for my location using a compass. So what was it? I don't know. Anybody has any ideas, please. Yes.
It's very similar to what we see around Mount Blanc.
Yeah.
Even just driving down the highway.
Yeah.
I see that same thing, and I think there can't be that many aircraft in this valley, but then they'll just sort of vanish.
Yeah. So July 2021, Jessica Jones' vehicle would arm and disarm the theft deterrent system by itself in base camp. Both Jessica Jones and Matt Delph had serious GPS navigations when heading home. And Kristen, remember, who's having the dreams about abductions, had her automobile lose all electronic functions just outside of Commerce, Georgia. And where else have we heard about this phenomena? A vehicle just losing all functions on dark, deserted roads. You ever? Yeah. Right. Right. So more hitchhikers. Several days after arriving home, Kristen had strange photo appear on her iPhone. The date stamp on the phone was a time when the phone was a few feet away from her head. No one admitted sending her this strange photo. And it was later that this photo was from a real estate listing, not related to her in any form. So where did this photo come from? I looked at the metadata on the photograph. You know, it had no GPS coordinates, had very little data at all. It did show up on her phone while it was supposedly right next to her head. And it showed up in her gallery. Do what? It does. It does. Now, I don't know if you recognize this young lady. October 2021, we were joined by Katie Page. Shadow figures were observed at the periphery of the metal, and voices were once again heard. FLIR yielded no contacts to explain the voices. We just decided to explore two other areas, meadows or fields near the meadow. Several team members observed flashing lights deep in the forest surrounding these fields, and Katie's traveling companion, who at this time was her son, physically had something tug on his hoodie, and nobody was around. So the phenomena is evolving. It's becoming more personal with us. It's becoming much more familiar with us. March 2022, we had a full cadre. We decided to conduct our research in the two new areas. We decided to place a pyramid-shaped box in the meadow with sundry trinkets. It was aligned magnetically north and south. When we went to retrieve it the next day, the only thing that was missing from the box was a rare earth magnet. Now, no controls were set up on this experiment. The box was not secure, so take it for what it's worth. October 2022, we had a documentary film crew along with us, and I'm having to speed this up so I don't run out of room. The documentary director wanted to experience an SD session. During his session, the words witch and Nephilim were heard, and he said they had experienced apocalyptic visions during the experiment. Remember, the Nephilim were Old Testament giants, and some believe that that's a reference to Bigfoot. This session was also witnessed by a cinematographer and production assistants. They described seeing shadow beings swirling around us as we conducted the session. Two members of his team had paranormal experiences when they got home. This is what he told me. So I've been able to speak with the others about what they saw during the Estes event. A shadowy, nearly invisible being would hover around me and would appear to try to enter me and come back out. This happened several times and eventually went in me and either didn't come out or vanished. All I remember of the event is the strange images of destructions and weird images of dead babies covered in blood. The shadow being was reportedly humanoid, wearing a hood or a cowl. It seems it does correlate with what they describe as shadow people. The production assistant and cinematographer refused to come back to the meadow. Would anybody like to see the shadow person? Okay, so I'm going to have to set this up for you. Is if you look on the stump behind us right here, is when he says stop, just stop. Now remember, we also heard that during the other SD session. If you look on this stump right here, when he says stop, just stop, over his right shoulder, you will see a shadow appear between us and the stump. The studio lights were in front of us. There was nobody passing between us and the lights. There obviously was nobody behind us. So take a look at this.
Are you telling us about our
In a box?
In a box.
We did see a box in the meadow.
Heat?
And it did pick up on heat signatures. Yes, it did put off heat. Were you responsible for this? Something that
Stop, just stop.
you did this last time we did this.
Yeah,
You
there's the
wanted us
shadow.
to stop. Why do you want us to stop?
Did you see the shadow move over the stump? Let me back up. It's right after he says stop, just stop. Just watch for his shoulder.
Can you help?
See if I-
Are you telling us about our
In a box?
We did see a box in the meadow.
Heat?
And it did pick up on heat signatures. Yes, it did put off heat.
Right here.
Were you responsible for this? Something that
Stop, just stop.
Now watch. Here it comes.
you did this last time we did this. You wanted us to stop. Why do you want us to stop?
Y'all see it? So that is interesting thing about that. That corresponds exactly with what his production crew described, and we were able to capture it on video. So that's kind of cool. When the cinematographers approached an area in the meadow that weekend about 18 feet in diameter, he would notice strange fluctuations on his battery life indicator of his camera. He would step in the circle. It would drop down to 10%. He'd step out of this area. It'd go up to 80%. Inside 10, outside 80. So that's pretty cool. February 2023, plagued with really bad weather. We had a remarkable UAP sighting, not unlike Bob's in 2026. The red orbs once again made an appearance south of base camp at 0200, and a dowsing experiment was attempted in the meadow, and we asked a series of questions, and we asked whatever it was if they could raise the reading on my Geiger counter to 0.13 microsieverts. That's a photograph of the Geiger counter going to 0.13 microsieverts and holding. So here is, in their own words, the people that saw the UFO. Okay, kind of retell me everything you just said.
Okay, so we were sitting here listening to the radio.
Yeah, what time?
It's 5:15 Central Time.
Okay.
5:05
Okay,
Central Time.
Okay, 17:05. Okay.
And it's been raining all day long, and I said, well, the sun's coming up, or the sun's starting to peek through over there, and then it hit me. I said, well, that's the wrong direction. We double-checked the compass, and it's pointing in the easterly direction.
Okay, and I just checked it with my compass. It's 105 degrees.
Okay.
Magnetic.
And it was just above the ridge, and it looked like the sun behind the clouds. It was a diffused light, not a bright flashlight like a flashlight or something pointing at you. It was a diffused light, just like the sun setting. And then it moved from right to left. It moved over a few degrees, and then it got out of my line of sight and moved past some thicker.
In the interest of time, I'll just move on. But basically, it was the same thing Bob saw. Big orb moved sideways and winked out. In 2023, we observed a steady, brilliant light, much brighter than the moon, moving from horizon. Several of folks underwent God helmet sessions, which is an experiment using electromagnetic stimulation of both hemispheres and eventually one hemisphere of the brain. We had two new people with us, Christy and Shay. During that night, Christy said she felt like she was being watched, that there was something slinking along the ground around her. Now, forgive me, I'm having to speed this up. And she wanted to go back and be with other team members. While they were moving back along the ridge, myself and another team member saw an orb just below the ridge line tracking them. During the night, Christy had a dream where she had a figure show her these images right here. A spiral, a squared off spiral, and a spiral with an eye in it. I asked her if she had ever heard any of my lectures, heard any of the podcasts I own, read any of the books, and knew anything about the box or what we called the portal. And she said no. And I explained to her that the spiral is an iconology usually used sometimes to denote a gateway or a portal. And what's interesting is, like I said, two of these things are box-like or cube-like in appearance. While I was preparing breakfast, I had my cooking spray disappear. And I looked and looked and looked, got frustrated, used something else, went back the next morning on Sunday, and there it was, where it was supposed to be all the time. That's the trickster element. In 2023, we had a lot of shadow beings. Unfortunately, in March, Bob Wilson died. And his last wish was to have his ashes spread at the meadow. And very fittingly, his urn was a simple black cube. March 28th, 2024, not long after that, on the morning of the 28th, I discovered huge canine tracks behind my house. These tracks were 6 inches in diameter. Huge, very deep tracks. And in the lower left-hand side, you see the track of my dog, which is a 90-pound boxer pit bull mix. That's his footprint, half as big. And then that's a track line that all of a sudden started and then ended, didn't continue. What's interesting is, out of the book Skinwalkers of the Pentagon, Jonathan Axelrod, an engineer with Naval Intelligence, worked with Bigelow with the National Institute of Discovery Science. He and his family experienced numerous instances of extreme high strangeness in the Virginia home, but none was more terrifying than the beast that would roam their quiet backyard. Quote, for more than a dozen years following his 2029 and subsequent trips, Axelrod's wife and then teenage children were subjected to a nightmarish dogmen appearing in their backyard. Dogmen appearing at the home of a researcher at another area of high strangeness. While working on a film project just last November, we also recorded something slinking along the ground. So if you remember in the book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, they talk about something, two researchers talk about seeing a portal appear on their night vision, not thermal, but night vision, and something comes slinking out of it. And if you look at whatever this thing is slinking, it gets really big and compare it to the trees in the foreground.
Yeah, the signature's kind of broke up right now. Yeah, it's moving. That looks like it's a pretty good size, whatever it is.
And you see that tree to the left, which was about this wide, and it's quite a bit further than that. And the thing, whatever it was big, and it was in the same area where we saw the box back in 2017. So we call that video the Slinker video. So, and Seth has done a little bit of analysis on that, and the results, I don't know if we're quite ready to go public with, but it's pretty damn weird. You want me to spill the beans, Seth, on what you found? Well, what using quantum imagery analysis is around that creature there is a series of faces, facial heads or faces, like there are things always around us in this area. And then another researcher was looking at that, and he sent me back an email, and he says, why do I pick up a straight line, a vertical line to the right of that? And I said, that's where the box was in 2017. So you got to wonder, is the box still there and we just can't detect it? Okay.
Soul recyclers of boxes, which would, if they're soul recyclers, could have faces.
There is
one on the moon, too.
There is some stuff that we are working on with a group called
That's
the Meadow
weird.
Collaborative that I'm not quite ready to go public with yet, but you might be onto something there, Katie. Who knows? The Meadow Collaborative is literally pushing the boundaries of science. We address the quantum truth of the meadow and reality in general, exploring the nature and context of non-human intelligences. And what we are finding out is not only are we not alone, we are never alone. And is a world ready for this? Okay, so what's going on? Is it an extraterrestrial? Is it other dimensions? Is it natural phenomena? Is it a multiverse? Bottom line up front, we really don't know. And you have to remember, truth, lowercase truth, is not truth, uppercase truth. So I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to hold something up, and on the count of 3, I want everybody to yell out what color they see. Okay? Go. Okay, that was a demonstration showing that both of y'all were right at the same time, and both of you were wrong at the same time. Kind of like all of this is true. It's true that that object is a square, and it's true that that object is a circle, but the actual truth is it's a cylinder existing outside of the 2 dimensions of the square and the circle. So if we're hung up by our own biases, be it religion, science, normalcy bias, fears, peer pressure, and we're looking at the Mona Lisa through a toilet paper tube, we don't ever see the true picture until we pull the toilet paper tube down from our eyes and are bold enough to really look at it. When considering researching all aspects of high strangeness, be it UAPs, ghosts, cryptids, psychic abilities, NDEs, etc., always keep your eyes, ears, mind, and heart open. You will quickly discover that the world is much stranger than you ever thought. Daniel Webster said, "There is nothing so powerful as the truth, and often nothing so strange." I've chronicled this in 2 books, The Meadow Project and Return to the Meadow. I have 10 copies of each. I've got a special SnippyCon deal. Singularly, the books are 15 apiece. Together, 25. Pretty cool. Soon to be released. What about a documentary? Let's take a look at the trailer.
This place is very special, extremely special. It ranks very high on the list of extreme high strangeness, extreme high strangeness, extreme high strangeness.
There was all kinds of different phenomena that his team had documented at the Meadow.
I mean, stuff was popping off at the freaking camp.
We knew of all the stories that we had heard them tell over multiple podcasts for the last few years.
I'm not sure what I just saw, but Bob just turned into a ball of light.
Something grabbed my legs and was pulling me out of bed. The only way I could describe it was like Gollum.
Shadow people everywhere.
The anticipation part started ramping up.
We are big fans of putting ourselves in environments to see how it unfolds around us.
What was that?
Okay, I caught that on camera.
Saw something, like real strange.
I was starting to let myself believe.
We were getting too close to the truth.
Let's freaking go.
All right.
Welcome to the Meadow. It's weird.
So where do you find me? Go behind the local liquor store and look in the dumpster. No, not really. You can find me at TreyHudsonResearch.com, TreyHudsonResearch@gmail.com, or Facebook at TreyHudson-author. I want to thank you for your time and attention. I'm sorry I had to kind of scoot it forward a little bit. I don't want to start cutting into other people's times. And I thought I was ending at 3 o'clock. Actually, it's 3:30. So mea culpa once again. The Meadow is a very strange place. I don't have the answers. I don't know what's going on there. And all I can do is offer you a glimpse into our research and our lives as we continue to explore this remarkable place. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for making the effort to sit in this hot tent with me. And y'all are the stars, not me. Yeah, any questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do what? The who? Native Americans have a lot of history in that area, and they have like the history of a thing called the stone coat giants, which were like Bigfoot. They have, of course, the Spearfinger Witch, and then they have another entity called the Raven Mocker, which was a kind of a skinwalker type entity. So, yeah, right. That, yeah, they're familiar. Well, yeah, I mean they're not familiar with like that area, because in order to keep the area secret, I don't really go out and query a lot of people. Because like I said, it is on public land, and once the location gets out, it's done. I'm done. Yes, sir.
Trey, is there a name for time and place displacement? Because I know people that's happened to.
Yeah, that's actually kind of. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool. That's, a temporal displacement, whatever you want to call it. But one of the things that we've been using, and when I had to speed up, I went over it, is we're using a thing called a time dispersal meter, where you have a device that you have a control unit that runs at 1 second, and then you have a probe 100 feet out that based on the resistance of the cord, the signal goes out and comes back and should be exactly 1 second. And we recorded time running differently at this place. I'm talking about very small amounts, but it does seem like time is different. And what's really kind of cool is like, Bob and the light turning into the ball of light. It looks, and the people going into something that was different in the box, because they described it as being cold, very quiet, and like being inside of a black velvet bag, like they were somewhere else. So the cool thing is, it sounds like you have multiple realities existing at the same time at the same place, which we've only ever seen that before at the quantum level. So at these places of high strangeness, is it possible that these quantum effects are happening at a macro level? And is that what people are experiencing? So that's why we're looking for things like radiation spikes and stuff like that. So seeing if maybe we can A, come up with indicators to determine when something strange might happen, and B, maybe actually crack the code on the phenomena. Great question. A portal is just a loose term we use as a gateway to something that's not here. I think it was a threshold to another reality that was just a fudge different than ours, because when the team went into it, they didn't encounter any brambles or bushes or anything, but when they came out 90 seconds later, all of a sudden they're stumbling over things that weren't there before. So it's like reality shifted just a little bit. So, is that what people are experiencing when they go missing, in the Missing 401 series, is they step into something and maybe they didn't have the protocols or wherewithal to get back out. I don't know. I really don't have the answers, but it's awfully interesting to investigate. Yes, Seth.
Yeah, so one thing that I didn't share with you, which I probably should, I think it's on my
Seth.
my drive instead of on my computer, but when you're looking at the field where the rectangular box was,
Right.
if you're looking at one frame at a time, you can't really see it too easy. But I had like 60, 90 frames all in a row, and you can see a darkened area across each one, and the box becomes very clear that way looking at it.
Yeah. And Seth is doing some of the analysis. MUFON has graciously granted some of their expertise to look at some of this video. And the results we have are they're mind-blowing. And they're so weird that after we got done filming doing the premiere for our documentary, we put the brakes on it so we're going to add an add-on section to it that talks about some of this extreme high strangeness.
The difficulty is you're in an area that you can actually prove quantum theory.
Yeah.
The physicists, traditional physicists, don't want to get involved in anything that hasn't already been discovered. It's so hard to move them off of the accepted science.
Right.
Get them to look at the evidence and say, look, this proves, the superposition theory.
Right.
This proves the Bose-Einstein.
Exactly. And I think it's reasonable to say, and this is not hyperbole, that the Meadow Collaborative is doing some groundbreaking work. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very, and basically these are scientists that have offered their time, to help me with this project. So it's really cool. It's really cool. So y'all like it? Did y'all like your adventure? Okay. Very cool.